Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the same old Arsenal podcast. Mixed feelings this evening. I think it's safe to say Arsenal losing at home in the first leg of the Champions League semi-final yesterday to Paris Saint-Germain. So much hype, so much build-up going into the game, and I mean a lot of that was crushed within those opening 5 minutes. But we're gonna dissect it. Look at the positives, of which we can draw some, I'm sure. Look at some of the negatives, of which there were quite a few as well. And I mean, no better person to do that with than LL Cool J. It's been a while, hasn't it, mate?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on, James. And of all the people you could have picked, I was probably at the last of your list, but I'm grateful that you've extended the olive branch and gone, try and help me dissect this, please.
Well, don't do yourself such a disservice, mate. You're actually at the very top of my list of people that I wanted to talk this through because I know, we might have some conflicting opinions about this one, but I mean, it's all hopefully going to be healthy debate. But let's go into it, mate. Let's start right at the beginning. Obviously, we went into this game on such an enormous high, having beaten Real Madrid 5-1 on aggregate. The atmosphere at the Emirates for that 3-0 was just, I've never experienced anything like that. And I think a lot of us were expecting the same going into yesterday. I mean, the club had done so much to build up hype, atmosphere towards this match. But reality also tells us, we're missing Thomas Partey, key player for us. We're also missing Kai Havertz. We're missing Gabriel. These are guys that you want available for a Champions League semi-final. But also we were riding such a high that I think a lot of us felt that we were going to go and do it yesterday. So before we get into what actually occurred during the match, what were your feelings just going into the game? And also, what were your thoughts on the starting 11? Because it was kind of the best Arteta could do with the players he had.
Yeah, the starting 11, I thought that was what was going to play. I mean, the first half of Ipswich, I know Ipswich and PSG are completely different teams, but it was like the dress rehearsal for this game, I believed. So it was the same team that played that first half versus Ipswich, obviously. And to me, before the game, I wasn't necessarily nervous per se. I know that they're one of the most informed teams in Europe at the moment. Obviously, they lost at the weekend going into it. They didn't have they didn't have the best form going into it. But for me, I thought to myself, you know what? I think we're up for this, regardless of everything that we've done to make it even more, palpable and intense than it was. I thought to myself, if these lot cannot get themselves up for a Champions League semi-final, what can they get themselves up for? And I didn't really question that before the game, James. And when the lineup come out, I was like, well, that's what I expect. And I thought, look, we'll see how this goes. And I was quietly confident, James. I thought that we'd do enough there to win that yesterday. And boy, was I proven wrong. And very early was I proven wrong as well.
Yeah, it was the same for me, mate. I was feeling quietly confident. I thought I didn't think it would be quite as emphatic as the Real Madrid game, but I thought, we're saving all our energy for this. This is our season right here, right now. We go out of this, that's the season done. So I thought, we could be on for a 1-0, a 2-1. I thought it would be cagey. I didn't think we would get dominated in the way that we absolutely did in that first 25, 30 minutes. But before we talk about the actual game itself, I mean, obviously there was so much hype built up from the club, from supporters going into this match. And I have to say, the atmosphere at the ground and the atmosphere just in and around Highbury was electric. Like building up to the game, it was so good. The concourses were absolutely amazing. I do want to briefly touch on the Tifo that Arsenal brought out because I know that there's been a lot of debate around this. The Ashburton Army proposed something, raised about 10 grand, which is great. Whether you like the design or not is purely subjective. But the club said no, we're not going to go with that. We've got our own thing. And I have to say, JJ, I was gutted with how that turned out. I mean, it wasn't even hung properly. And I'm not saying that was an atmosphere killer, but in terms of giving other clubs something to laugh at us with, I mean, that was just, for me, it screamed of, well, this is better than nothing, so let's just hoist it out there. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know if the Ashburton Army, sorry, I haven't checked their social feed today, but have they shared what their proposed design was? Because I can bet a bollock to a barn dance it was nowhere near as bad as the one that we put up. I mean, it's nice to know, James, that in 2025 clip art still exists and that people can still use clip art to make things. I thought that we were this forward-thinking, amazing football club, but clearly we still like clip art. It wouldn't surprise me if when they were designing it, they had the little paper clip in the corner on the computer telling them how to do it as well. That's it. Just seemed like you said, like is that's it. All of this, for a week, and I don't want to throw him under the bus because he seems like a nice guy. But is it the guy from Red Action on Twitter that he was like, "Oh, you wait for this. Like this is going to be, it's going to be hung from the top of the great. It's going to be amazing." And I was like, "That's it."
I don't think it helped that it wasn't hung properly either. Like there was a
Yes.
big section of it
Yeah.
that was just
Yeah.
drooping down and looked a little bit sad. Look, I think the club can take a lesson from that. And my advice would be keep it simple, because what we did against Real Madrid, where we just had the whole stadium red and white, perfect. That was beautiful. Just do that again. I think the Tifo they had in the East Stand, which said make it happen, that was classy. That looks really good. But at Cannon, it was a nice experiment. Didn't work. But we're not here to purely dissect the Tifo, because we could probably do an entirely separate podcast on that. JJ, let's talk about those opening 25, 30 minutes, because I have to say, I was actually quite taken aback by how poor we were and how I have to give credit to PSG. I thought they were amazing. Really, really good. It was like watching prime Barcelona, like that 2010 Barcelona side where they had Iniesta, Busquets, Xavi, Messi, just a phenomenal side playing at such intensity, at such speed. Vitinha was sprinting for every single loose ball. They were everywhere. Their press was fantastic, and it didn't help that we were just a bit of a calamity. I've not seen Arsenal lack that much structure in a long time. It was like going back to the Mustafi era. We didn't quite know where to be. Our positioning was off. Our tactics seemed a little bit skewed, and I know that on paper, Rice, Marino, Odegaard, you look at that and think, okay, pretty solid. We trialed it against Ipswich, seems to be absolutely fine. But what I would say is that Rice has played so much football further up the pitch now that he's not really accustomed to be in that six. He's not played there a lot this season. Same for Marino. He's played most of his football up top. He's coming into a left eight role where he's not played a lot of football as of late. So actually, although on paper these players are in fairly what should be familiar positions, they've not played that combination in a long time. Ipswich aside, who are frankly a dreadful team, and we're coming up against one of Europe's elite, and we just got, I think, rings run round us in that opening half hour. What do you put that down to, mate?
It's an amalgamation of everything you've said. I think lack of probably players playing in the positions what they've been asked to be played in. I think a slight tactical naivety probably crept in there. And also, James, there's times, especially with Arsenal, where we don't play the teams that are in front of us. We play the occasions. And I think, and again, as much as before pre-game, pre-podcast with you a minute ago, when I was talking about the manager, I think that feeds into the players as well. I look at him sometimes and I'm still, we're this far into his tenure and I'm still questioning his ability to change a game and, chase a game that he's losing. And we're nearly 7 years in and he still hasn't nailed how to do that properly for me yet. And that to me is a massive, massive crux and a problem as to why this team don't go on and do what we all want them to do. And until that's addressed, I don't know how we ever are, sadly. As much as I want to sit here and be positive about every single thing that I can, I can't when it's glaringly obvious what's in front of me. It was so obvious, James, after that first 30 minutes. And yeah, okay, afterwards and everything else, we were, for want of a word, the better side per se, but they still had the better chances. There was only one team at the end that were trying to win that going into the second leg, and it certainly wasn't Arsenal.
Okay, mate. Interesting points. So, just before we go on to take this comment from Kevin, thank you for
Yeah,
your
this is a
comment.
great point because he said about this in his post-match presser, but again, he wouldn't allude to what it was and was just like, well, if you don't know what that is, then da, 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 da. And I'm like, this is something that he does a lot when he loses or he doesn't get a result go his way. He'll throw sort of these comments out that will try and gaslight our fan base. I can't abide it, James. I can't abide it. It's like, oh, I'm at this level above your critique or your analysis. And I just think that's wrong. I think that's wrong to do. I've never understood it. And it's another thing that I don't like about him when he does things like this, James, because, okay, myself, I'll throw myself in the ring. I don't profess to have this amazing football nous. I'm just a guy that's got a big mouth and has luckily, since he was 18 years old, up to now where he's 34, been at a level where people invite me on and I get to do these podcasts and I've been on TV and I've managed to do loads of other great things. But I could see with my 2 eyes and my level of football acumen that you're being overrun there in that midfield. The midfield is being completely decimated. So take Trossard off, who's having a terrible game, or take Odegaard off, who's having a terrible game. Bring Nwaneri on or Tierney on to fill at fullback and move Lewis Skelly up, move Moreno up, and move Rice up. That was glaringly obvious. That was what he needed to do because all of the positive chances that we had, James, come from Skelly inverting into the midfield and them not being able to handle his physicality and his pace. They were having to chase him. Instead of us trying to chase them, they were having to chase him. And yet Arteta, for 80 minutes, and then even still, when he brought Nwaneri on the 90th minute with 5 or 6 minutes left to play, goes, oh, I'll bring him on now. Well, that sub should have been made 20 to 30 minutes prior to that. It was ridiculous. And yeah, to the comments that he come out with, like I said, stop trying to gaslight a fan base. Just tell us what it is that you've supposedly done, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, interesting takes, mate. Interesting takes. The one thing I would say is, where obviously the squad is threadbare at the minute. You know, you have to be realistic about what is available and on the bench. Yes, there are definitely opportunities to change things. I think if I'm just trying to look at this from Arteta's perspective, the reason why I don't think he would have done what you're suggesting there in terms of putting Lewis Skelly into midfield is because it's a hypothetical at the minute. Like, it's not really something we've tried and tested. I get that he's inverting in there, but
when we played Ipswich, he played 3 positions. He played left back, 6 and 8 in one game. So it's not hypothetical because it's been done. And I know it was against Ipswich, but like I said, everything that was positive that was happening was from when Lewis Skelly was basically playing as the 6 anyway. And that was happening in front of his eyes, and yet he still couldn't see it, James.
I think the issue with Arteta would be, though, is that in these situations, he doesn't want to take off players that he can trust, which is why we saw Odegaard remain on the pitch for so long when he absolutely shouldn't have done, because he probably trusts him more to do something quite basic like keep the ball, whereas he expects someone like Nwaneri to come on and take more risks. Now, it's up to you whether you think that's right or wrong. I think
you're spot on. Yeah, you're spot on.
But I think it's just a case of, he this would be my one flaw with Arteta, is that he's not willing to take too many risks in situations like this. He would rather keep things tight and give us a chance rather than go a bit more gung-ho and seize an opportunity when potentially it's there and open a team up. But that's going to cost us, because then you get to points in the games where you're in the 91st, 92nd minute and you've not done anything. And it'll be interesting how we will approach that second leg, because if it's 70, 80 minutes on the clock and the scoreline is still 1-0 on aggregate to PSG, well, even at 70 minutes, you've got to make those changes, right? So it'd be interesting to see how we take that. We've not even touched on the Dembele goal yet, and that came as a result of our midfielders being totally vacated. Just seemed to be a massive miscommunication between Rice, Marino, Dembele drifting into no man's land, really. And it's a bit of a scuffed finish, but you have to say the placement of it is really, really good. It's left right with no chance. It goes through and misses every single body possible. And 4 minutes on the clock, mate. It's the worst possible start, and that had a huge impact on the atmosphere. I know that people said the atmosphere was poor yesterday, and I mean, in comparison to Real Madrid, of course, throughout the context of the game, it was poor. But fans are going to react to what is around them, and that goal happening so quickly sucked that atmosphere out. And then, okay, if we'd have gone up the other end and created chance after chance after chance, you would have seen a reaction from the crowds. I don't doubt that, because we tend to get behind the team, even in losing situations, so long as we're seeing that we're creating. But it wasn't like that. We were battered for the next 20, 25 minutes. So talk me through the goal. What do you think went wrong there? And why were we just not able to get a grasp on the game after going behind?
Yeah, well, this is the guy's trademark. You know, if you look at what he did against Liverpool, it's the same sort of thing. He drops off, gets given it in space, and has a shot, and it goes in. And I mean, like you said, the miscommunication there. I mean, Timber, that's the worst game I've seen him play for Arsenal. I thought he had an absolute stinker last night, James Timber, and I'm one of his biggest fans. I think he's superb. You know, I sit there and I go, bloody hell, we cost us what, 35 million. I'm like, what a bargain. What a bargain. But yeah, he had a terrible game out there. And I mean, to be fair, you know, I can't pronounce the guy's name, so apologies, but he's one of the best wingers in the world, isn't he? Kavara, whatever. I can't pronounce his surname. I'm not going to try and butcher. You know, I'll sound like Paul Merson if I try and say his name. But yeah, he was superb, and it's a nice ball. And yeah, the finish, like you said, just completely does everybody. I mean, it gets a nice one off the post as well on the way in, which helps. But yeah, and after that, like you said, just shell shocked, just completely rattled. Not just us as a team and the manager, but the crowd, like you said. And one thing I will say about the atmosphere, James, is okay, I don't get to go as much as I've gone in the past and what have you. And you can sense and you can have somewhat of a feel of the atmosphere from the television. But I don't necessarily think it's as bad as a lot of these people are making it out to be. I'm like, you're putting it across like Arsenal have some kind of, you know, we're this like ultra European style fan base. And I'm like, I've been going since 1995. We're very quiet. Like you said, if things are happening, we react. We're not people that for 90 minutes non-stop, we're going up and down, going up and down, going up, because people shout at you to sit down in your seat. Or the stewards come and tell you, sit down in your seat. So I don't understand this bashing from certain people of what our atmosphere was like. To me, they're people that don't go, or they haven't been for such a long time, because it's definitely improved to what it was before. But we're nothing, you know, we're nothing like what they're making us out to be. We've never been a side that for the full 90 minutes, everybody is jumping and everybody's going. We are not that side. So I don't understand some of the bashing that people are doing. And like Mr. Blobby's put in the comments there, compared to the Madrid game, it was muted. Well, yeah, because we were 3-0 up against a team that nobody expected us to be 3-0 up against.
Yeah, and even in that first half against Madrid, we didn't score, but we were excellent.
Yes.
Whereas I think, like I said previously, if we'd have gone behind but showed an instant reaction, the atmosphere, I think, would have been very, very good. You know, if we got an equaliser in that first half, if Martinelli takes that chance, you know, the atmosphere goes up another level. If that Marino goal stands,
100%.
the atmosphere on that goal, by the way, was really, really good. It's just such a shame that it was offside. So I think before we go on to talk about the opportunities that we had, I do want to touch on missing Thomas Partey, because I think if he plays yesterday, it's a very different game. And I think he would have brought a sense of calmness to that opening 25, 30 minutes that we just didn't have. It was erratic. There was no tempo. Our midfielders were, you know, taking up completely different positions. Rice was marauding forward when he shouldn't have been. Marino seemed a bit unsure of where to be at times. Thankfully, they sorted it out, and Rice and Marino, I think they both went on to have solid games, but it was just a little bit too chaotic, and it wasn't very Arsenal-like in the opening stages. And I ultimately, I think that was down to missing Thomas Partey. And also, I'd have to say, I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think even having Jorginho in there to set the tempo, you know, to keep things moving over,
yeah.
What a massive miss he was, mate. And what a stupid thing to do to get that yellow card in Madrid. And it could define this tie. Honestly, it could define how this tie goes. Just a stupid rush of blood to the head moment where he didn't need to get drawn in. It's not for a foul. It's not for anything tactical. It's purely just, you know, playground stuff. And he's done that knowing full well that we don't have Jorginho in reserve, and something like this could well have happened. He now owes us the performance of his life next week. But going back to this game in isolation, how much of a miss was Thomas Partey?
Oh, it's huge because to me, and again, it's a lot of shoulda, coulda, woulda, which I know we don't like doing, but I don't think they do that first goal if he's there because he doesn't leave that much of a gap.
No.
He doesn't leave that much of a space. I like you said with Declan Rice, and I hope that there's people out there that come at the likes of me and you, where we say he's an 8 and not a 6 now. Stop saying to play him as a 6. That they actually come and apologise, James, because it's clear that this guy is not a holding midfielder anymore. He's advanced. He is a number 8. He is what bit maybe a slightly OTT, but it's the only real comparison I can make. He's basically the closest thing we're probably going to get to a Gerrard in our side. And playing him now as a holding midfielder completely just restricts his game. That's not what he's there for anymore.
No, and you could see he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Either, because look at those runs he made. Look at that opportunity he made for Trossard. He wants to be let off the leash. He does. Okay, great. He can do the defensive stuff. He can do interceptions, but what he's now so good at is maraudering forward, driving the team forwards. And when he hasn't necessarily got to think, oh, I've got to be shielding the back four, he can do that to such an excellent level. And Partey, or hopefully Zubamendi next season, whoever it may be, even Jorginho, just allows him to do that whilst they set the tempo. And like Kevin says here, Partey is the framework for the team structure. So we've got him back for the second leg. That's a blessing because we're really, really going to need him. He was a big, big miss yesterday. But JJ, I know obviously the opening half hour was very, very poor. And as Tony in the comments says, we were lucky not to concede more than one goal. Completely agree. They should have, it felt like they should have been about 3-0 up after that kind of demolition job on us. But we did have chances of our own. Martinelli had one where I think it was a ball put in from the left and he was not too far away from it. I think he should have gone for it with his head and he ended up going for it with his right boot. But then after that one where Lewis Skelly kind of puts it on a plate for him and he had to finish that. But then there's the Marino offside. There's the Trossard chance in the second half where Donnarumma gets a glove to it. We had clear-cut chances, mate. No doubt about it. And that's what gives me confidence going to the second leg. So do you think, okay, the first 30 minutes was dreadful, but for the rest of the game, we did, have our fair share of chances. We dominated the game. And on another day, is it a case of if one of those goes in, this is a different result?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Trossard one, I think a lot of people are bigging up Donnarumma on the save. I think if you're a 6'6" goalkeeper and you don't make that save, you're quite crap, to be honest. The way that he took so long narrows the angle down. It makes it easier for the goalkeeper. I think the Martinelli one, I'll go, yeah, fair enough. Good save. But the Trossard one, I'm like, I think that's more of a poor finish than that's a good save. I think if you're talking about saves in that game, I agree with Mr. Blobby. I think the Raya one, it was the better. That kept us in it. That was a humongous save in the first half. That Raya one, and it was a much better. To me, it's a much better save. But yeah, obviously it won't get the plaudits. But yeah, we definitely did enough to potentially get something out of it. It's just the lack of wanting to build on that, James. That's the problem. That's where I've still got my. When we take Timber off, who looked like he'd pulled up a bit and was like, no, I need to come off. So we swapped him for Ben White. You're making a defensive substitution there when really you need to make an offensive one per se. And then after you make that defensive substitution, they have two more clear-cut chances to score on goal. I mean, how Barcola missed, I'll have no idea how he missed that. That is an absolute guff of a miss. It's unbelievable how he's missed that. And then the other guy, I think if he actually went with his side foot instead of trying to toe poke it, he probably wouldn't have hit the bar. What was it, Ramos, whatever his name is?
Yeah, I think one of those was offside, wasn't it?
I think it's the Ramos one. Yeah, I think it might have been the Ramos one. But then again, the Martinelli one where you said he should have gone with his head instead of his foot, that was offside as well, wasn't it? So I might that would have got ruled out. But yeah, I just we were very fortunate not to
when we're fortunate, although I led into this by saying we had chances of our own. My initial feeling coming out of the game was we are so fortunate this is not
Oh,
3 or 4.
definitely. I mean, it was a 1.7 to 1.2 xG, but that 1.2 from PSG, I'm like, come on. I'm like, there's no way that was 1.7 to 1.2. If you look at the actual game
Chances,
in
yeah.
full, yeah, I'm like, that's very, very low considering the chances that they had.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's the only glimmer I've got is that we should be dead and buried, but at 1-0, there's a Rizzler paper of a chance that we could get something out of it.
I think there's more than a Rizzler paper, mate, but I'll save that till the end because I want to
Okay,
leave us
well,
on
the big. Okay, we'll say the big
big
Rizzler papers.
Rizzler, the
Yeah,
big
yeah,
Rizzler.
the naughty Rizzler papers. Okay.
Let's talk about the substitutions because I think you've very well got a point that he didn't change it quick enough, and I think the glaringly obvious one was bringing Wanyeri on for Odegaard, who had a really, really poor game. Ben White comes on for Yuri and Timber. I don't know if they showed this on the TV, but Timber actually pulled up maybe 10, 15 minutes before that he actually went off. And this seems to be becoming quite a regular thing. And I know that he's being played into the ground, but it seems to be around the 70-minute mark. He's just running on fumes. And there seems to be a lack of trust at the minute to bring Ben White in because he's still suffering on and off with issues. So that was the first substitution. But then, I mean, what else would you have done? I mean, I know you mentioned earlier about bringing Lewis Skelly into the midfield, but what else would you have changed?
So yeah, I would have just done exactly what I said earlier in that Kieran Tierney, whenever he's come on as a sub this season, or even in the small games that he started, what's the one thing he's done in all them games, James? He's put in one cross that if someone got on the end, he always puts a cross in every single game, and you go, oh, there's just somebody there. Look at it. We're getting rid of Tierney when he can cross like this. It's brilliant what he can do. All game, they did not like 38% of their goals this season has come from set pieces, and I think it's somewhere between 15 to 18% are on crosses. You saw it every time that Moreno, when we had a free kick or something, they did not like it because they've got very sort of small midfielders that aren't the best at defending set pieces and what have you. So I would have gone, like I said, I'd have took a Trossard or an Odegaard off way before because they were absolutely awful last night, both of them. Both of them. I mean, I am really starting to worry about our captain, James. I've seen people go, do you know what? Don't play him for the rest of the season now because he's clearly not right, and let him have a rest and go for next season. We can't. We can't. We can't afford to do that with him. We've got to try and play him through whatever it is. And he's got, I mean, there's all this motivate yourself. We're there. All of you that were there last night, you're in it. You're in. You're locked in. The support ain't a problem. Fix up yourself. You want more from us. Why don't you give more as a player? Because he's not. He can't go home and look himself in the mirror and say, I did everything I could last night. He can't. And that's the thing with me, James. I can take losing, but I can't take cowardice. And he was a coward last night. There was a lot of them big time players in our squad that were cowardly last night. And that I can't take. There's an 18-year-old kid playing at left back in a semi-final of a Champions League, and he completed 100% of his passes, 100% of his dribbles, and made 100% of his tackles. And he's 18 years old and he's locked in. You've got the international captain and the club captain, and you name me one thing he did positive in all that game. Because you might have seen it there live, but I certainly didn't see it at home on the television.
Well, let's talk.
And we're having games galore where we're seeing this now. It's not just a one-off. We're not just going, oh, Odegaard's had a bad day. We're going, Odegaard's had a bad months. This season, he has been nowhere near the level that he was before. And if he's carrying something or whatever, then, as bad as that is, he's got to shape up, James. He really does. Because he can be the best player in our team if he wants to be. But at the moment, he's looking like a luxury, James. He's being carried.
Well, let's talk about Odegaard here. This is an interesting comment from Karen, who says there's something badly wrong with Odegaard. I mean, health-wise. I remember when he came back into the side against Chelsea away, played 90 minutes, which none of us expected, and was excellent in that game. And it's just been,
Yeah, he was our best player against
yeah,
Chelsea.
it's been
Easily.
a real decline from there. And I'm going to disagree with you in the sense of I don't think he's necessarily being cowardly or shying away or anything like that. I'm seeing a guy where things just aren't coming up off for him in any way, shape, or form, which is having a knock-on effect on his confidence, which might give the impression that he's not showing for the ball in the way that he normally would. But yesterday I thought he was demanding for the ball a lot. He was just trying things that just weren't coming off. He doesn't play with the same pace, intensity that he has done in the past. And I think his game ultimately is exceedingly predictable. He drifts out to the right hand side. He's looking for Saka, or he's going to pass it back inside. He has no goal threat. He doesn't assist. And I'm not using this as a stick to beat him with, because I love Martin Odegaard. He's been our player of the season back to back. I'm absolutely not calling for him to be stripped of the captaincy or going that far by any means. I want him to do really, really well. But I also want to get to the bottom of, okay, why isn't it working? Because we've had a lot of different theories. Some people are saying he's not come back from his injury properly, which I mean, I personally, I don't buy into that. I think there's something not right there, but is it related to that injury that he had previously? Because let's have it right. He's played so much football. He came back from that injury after, what was it, 2 to 3-ish months? And he's been in the team consistently since then. So if there was something wrong, I'd be surprised that the medical team would be allowing him to play this much football. So I'm not sure that's something I wholly buy into. We've heard that he's still suffering from a bit of a hangover from this illness that he suffered earlier on in the year, which, was it flu, COVID, something like that. We've had fatherhoods come into the mix. We've had, the right side of the pitch being a bit different to how it normally is. He's playing with Timber.
He's vegan now. That's coming to it.
Is he? He's vegan as well. Okay,
to me that explains. When I found out that he's gone vegan, that explained his legs to me. Because you look at his legs now compared to when he was in his pomp. He's gone from having legs that look like chair arms to legs that look like cheese strings, mate. He's getting better. He looks like Bellerin did.
And he does look thin, very thin.
Bellerin's physicality, after he went vegan, dropped off big time. And I'm not trying to, if vegans are watching it, I'm not having a pop at you. I'm just saying, he has definitely looked more gaunter since he's changed diet-wise than he did beforehand.
Well, do you think it's all of these things we're talking about, all these hypotheticals, do you think it's a combination of all of them, or is it something else, or are we seeing a player that is just so badly out of form? I think it's ludicrous to say he's on the decline at his age. Like, he's still incredibly young.
I think it's all of them, James. Like you said, where it's not coming up for him and stuff like that. I do agree with you to some extent, but for me, he's always looking for that safest option. And Martin Odegaard weren't like that before to me. He would at the moment, when he gets that ball, he's only going to pass to Bukayo Saka or Timber. When you've got other people that are in clearer space, or even when he's got shots on goal, he'll take an extra 2 touches and try and and it's like, this was a guy a few seasons ago. Look at his goal against Tottenham. Look at the way he precisionally placed that ball into the net and everything.
And Newcastle.
He's taking shots with, great aplomb and scoring them. But now he's afraid to. So I think a lot of it is just mental more than anything. And if I knew how to get into him on a mental level to improve him, I wouldn't be sat here, James. I reckon I'd be a very, very rich man.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I genuinely don't know what we do about this. Because ultimately, let's say we do progress, we get to the Champions League final. You want Odegaard in your starting 11, right? He's your captain. He's going to play. How do we do the impossible and get him back to what feels impossible and get him back to his best? Because it feels like now we just need to get to pre-season and start again with him.
I think you just got to keep, as much as we're having somewhat of a critique of him here, I think you just got to channel. You just got to get in there. I don't know. Put an arm around him, encourage it. Everything that he does, big it up. Clap him, get him on. I just I really have no idea, James, because a lot of people make the parallels between him and Mesut Ozil. And I know that Mesut Ozil doesn't work nowhere near as if you look at the distance covered stats between a Martin Odegaard game and an Ozil game, he's probably run 8, 9, maybe even 10K more than Mesut Ozil ever ran. But it is getting to that stage where, like Mesut Ozil, for me at the moment, I'm like, you are looking like a luxury. And when you've got someone like Nwaneri that is young and hungry and wants to play in that position as well, I'm like, I don't want him dropped. I'll never say to drop him, James. And for me, even this weekend, I know Bournemouth's going to be a really, really hard game, but he's got to play for me because you've got to keep playing this guy until he finds form.
It's been so long now, mate. I don't see it happening.
No,
that's the thing. I thought he was good against Ipswich. I thought he was good in the second half against Real Madrid. But I've not really seen outside of that. I can't really think of any performances where I thought, great, he's going to kick on from here. I mean, he got a goal against PSV or something like that. It's been a while since I've felt really confident in him. But let's go into this question. Actually, another great one from Karen. Do you think he's only being told to pass Timber or Saka?
No, he just doesn't. Like you said earlier about Arteta not trusting certain people, he don't trust the others. He don't trust them.
It's what more can you say?
I don't believe he trusts anybody else to do it.
Okay, mate. So let's move on to looking at some of the positives and looking into next week. Obviously, the big positive for me is that it's just one goal, and this tie for me is very, 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 very much still alive. I know that obviously you've got to go away from home, you've got to win, but I don't think it's quite the miracle job that some people are painting it out to be. I saw enough from a relatively mediocre Arsenal performance to suggest that we can score against them. So if we go out there and we've got Partey back in the side, Marino up top winning those aerial duels, I am confident, not very, very confident, but I'm confident that we can score goals against this Paris Saint-Germain defence. If you look at the physicality of the team, and I'm not saying that's an opportunity for us to exploit because we just saw how good those small physical players were. Like it was like having 3 prime Santi Cazorlas in the midfield for them last night. They are very, very good players, but you also saw the physicality when Rice just ran through the midfield at times. If we've got Partey at the base, Rice with the ability to do that, I think the changes are fairly obvious. Trossard comes out, Partey comes in, bish, bash, bosh. That's all you need to do. What's your mentality for that second leg? Do we keep it tight again, or do we just go gun-ho from the start?
I think if you score within that first 10 minutes, anything can happen. So I'm like I said earlier, James, maybe it's to my detriment and how I was brought up and how I was raised, but I don't do cowardice, James. I don't do it. I don't do it. If you're gonna fall on your sword. I can take losing. I can't take losing with a whimper, James. Man United earlier in the season in the FA Cup, whimper. Newcastle, both legs, whimper. I'm like this. I'm like,
just go for it. Yeah,
go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
Do you?
And you'll get people that will go, oh yeah, and when we lose by 4 or 5, you'll be the first one to come on here. But no, I won't. No, I won't. If we've had a go and we get spanked, I'll respect it.
Do you think it is imperative that we score early? Because yes. I mean, okay. Why? Yes. I'm just curious. Why is that? Because I think even if it's 0-0 at half time, that's not quite the end of the world. I think.
I agree.
We could get a goal in the 95th minute, and go on to win the tie. I don't want it to come to that. That'll make me probably physically be sick. But if we could score, in the 70th minute, I'm pretty fine with that. If we get to half time 0-0 and we're playing well, I'm going to be relatively calm, I think. Obviously, if we could score in that first half, that opens things up because then they're going to come out and play.
You look when they played Liverpool, yeah? It was only the fact that Alisson had a worldie. They had 29 shots to 2 shots from Liverpool, yeah? Alisson had one of the best games he's ever had in his life against them. But when they play at home, and okay, it's not like a fortress, it's not an absolute cauldron of Europe, but they're going to turn it on for their fans. They're going to go for it. And for me, where they're already a goal up, they're going to go, let them have the ball, and we'll just pick them off on the counter and on transition, because that's the one thing they're good at. They're so quick. I don't think I've seen a side that we've played this season that are as quick as them, James.
No,
I
they were
can't
electric.
name you go more than I go, so you tell me you've seen it live. I haven't seen anyone play us at home that's as quick as them.
No, they were playing the ball before you even could see the player they were playing it to get into position to receive
cool.
it.
Okay,
It was
I'm
like they
not
were
off my
playing
head
with
then,
electricity in their veins. They were that good.
Yeah.
I mean, Vitinha is something else. He is so fast with his passing, his movement. But all of them, you look at the way they play the ball, they don't dawdle on it. They receive it, bang, gone. The other player receives it, bang, it's gone. Always. They know where their teammates are. But then they've got players like, Due, Cavascalia, these guys that just run into the box, cause havoc, strike fear into defenses. We saw it. Some might say we were fortunate not to give away a penalty when Cavascalia ran into the box. Timber puts his arm around him. Okay, it would have been quite soft, but still, it's those kind of moments that cause problems. I think PSG are actually going to go for it at home. I think they're going to try and score again. I don't think they're going to sit back. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because I think if we have another 30 minutes like we did the other day, and it could be longer than that, and it could be a hell of a lot more intense. If we concede, I think that's going to be bad news for us. Really bad news. Easily. But if we can ride that wave, get through it, and maybe pick them off on the counter, there's no reason why we can't win this tie. Like I say, I'm quietly confident about this. We've made it harder for ourselves.
I just think we need to score, James, because then that would force them to have to play more as well. Yep. I think like you, I think they're going to play regardless. But I think if we defo score, that will, especially within that first 10 mins, that will definitely make them go, bugger, we're in it now.
Yeah, it'll give them that feeling.
At the moment, they've got no seed of doubt. I'm like, you need to plant one, and then, because for me, I think as much as people glaze Hakimi and Mendes, I'm like, they're very, very good going that way, but they remind me of your João Cancelos, your Trents, and everything. You make them go the other way, them two cannot defend. They are not good defenders. There was that chance with Saka where, and I don't want to dig on these refs and everything, James. I don't want to give him any more publicity. That's one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in my life. He was clean through.
Well, that ref was blowing up for literally any time a player fell over. He'd blow up.
James, they got an injury that wasn't a head one, and he blew up so Dembele could get subbed. I've never seen that in 30 plus years of watching a game. He blew his whistle so the guy could get substituted. It weren't even a head injury. Mental.
Yep, and mental. We should clarify, we're definitely not using the referee performance as an excuse for what we saw.
Oh, no.
It was bizarre.
I don't do excuses, James. I don't do excuses. I won't have it. Certain people that come on your show like excuses, James, and I have them for it. I don't do excuses.
Cool, here he is calling people out. All right, well, just to end it on, mate, then going into that next leg, I think we're pretty clear on what our team lineup needs to be. Is there anything else you would change? Let's say that we play Odegaard at the weekend against Bournemouth and he has another stinker, or Ranieri starts in place of Odegaard and scores 2, gets an assist, puts in a man of the match performance. That's the only other one I'm thinking that could be a potential change, but I just don't see it happening. So that's Ranieri coming for Odegaard.
No, it will be like we've said. But the thing is, Saturday is going to be such a tough game. But it just shows you that with us, you can't switch form on and off. We've got to be going into it, And that Palace result, where it was so bad at the end, I'm not saying necessarily completely drip fed into this one, but I'm like, we need to get 2 wins here because let's get it right, James. And I don't want to completely end this show on doom and gloom, but we don't get a result against Bournemouth at the weekend. We then have PSG away on the Wednesday.
Don't.
James, we have Anfield away on the Sunday. We could be 4th in the league by that game on that Sunday.
Don't go there, mate.
This is it. Is that I'm like, you want to go from being in a 2-horse race to being 4th in a 2-horse race.
I agree. I think, you know, if we get to the Champions League final, so long as we finish within the Champions League places, I'm not going to care.
I can't see us finishing anywhere below 5th because of what we've done. We've got 5th place as a qualify. You know, you can get 5th and make the Champions League this year now because of how far we've gone in the competition. So the rest of the clubs in the league, instead of bantering us, should be thanking us, to be honest. But there we go. That'll never happen.
Yeah,
but I can't see us finishing anything below 5th, James. But at the same point, I'm like, to regress in the league, and then.
But I think I've heard the word regression an awful lot recently, but I think you have to put into context why. I don't think it's regression. I just think you've got to be realistic about the context of why we are where we are. Any team would struggle with the injuries we've had. Saka out for so long.
Yeah, but James, the gap that we had over them, that is regression.
No, of course it is. But again, I think you've just got to contextualize as to why it's happened. So many injuries happening in such a short period of time. I mean, it's unprecedented, the injuries we've had, all coinciding with one another, on top of the ludicrous references we've had. I'm not using this as an excuse, but if I'll go on record as saying, if Gabriel, Havertz, Calafiori, Tomiyasu, Thomas Partey, who's not injured but suspended, if they're available for the game yesterday, we've won that game. I'm that confident we would have won that game. So it does have a big impact. And it's not like, you know, we've lost Havertz for 2 months, but everyone else is fit. We've lost Odegaard. No, it's all happening in culmination. Gabriel and Havertz, 2 of your starters, are out at the same time. Like, that is deeply unfortunate. And that's been a theme throughout the season. Like Saka being out, along with a load of other players being out. There was that period where Martinelli was out as well. Do you remember we had Trossard, Marino, and Wanyeri as our front three for a month?
Yeah.
That was a horrible month. Like, it's been bad for many reasons. So I don't see it as regression. For me, I just see it as deep misfortune. And to be where we are, Champions League semi-final with Marino up top as your striker, and, you know, look, if we go all out for the Champions League and end up finishing 4th, I can live with that because I know where the priority was. But if we go out of the Champions League and end up finishing 5th or 4th, I won't be too happy with that because obviously no one's going to give too much enthusiasm to the Premier League if we go out against PSG next week. Fingers crossed we don't, and we still have something to play for this season right up until the final day. But I do worry about the enthusiasm dwindling from the team going into those final games, knowing that literally we're just playing for essentially second place. But we need to get it. I think we need to still be strong, finish this season well, and show that we're essentially the best of the rest. Okay, it's not a trophy, but we still need to keep the momentum going, even into pre-season, into next season, and do the best we can with what we've got. So I'm trying to leave it on a positive spin. And I will actually end it on this question again from Karen Russell. Thank you for all your questions, Karen. Out of 100%, how confident are you going into next week?
I'm going to say about 40.
40? Okay. That's for you. That's exceedingly high. So
I was going to say, as someone who is a miserable bastard, and that's what some of your listeners have called me as well. So I'm only quoting what they say. I'm going to go about 40%, James.
Okay, 40. We'll take that from JJ. I'm going to go 65. I think we'll score, and I think we've got every opportunity to go through. I normally would feel incredibly downbeat about yesterday, and I am usually the most pessimistic of the most pessimistic. But I think we'll do it. I think crazier things have happened, and
channel the ladies, mate. Got to look at what the ladies done.
Exactly.
I mean, this PSG side are much better than that Lyon one, but still, yeah.
Well, we'll all wait
and also they are, along with Arsenal, the perennial bottlers of the Champions League.
Exactly.
Us and them are the 2 biggest sides at bottling this Champions League. So that's another thing to cling on to.
I think I read something just before coming on. I might be ever so slightly wrong on this, but after the last 64 years, there's only been 6 times a team that after losing the first leg has gone on to progress, and out of 3 of those times, it's been PSG. So I'm not saying that's something to look into too much, and I might be a little bit wrong on that, but we know we can get at them. We know that exactly the same as us. This is a competition that they desperately want to lift. So let's make sure that we're there to stop them from doing it. But JJ, it's been great having you on, mate. Always a pleasure. Where can people find you?
Yeah, just at LL Cool James 91, and then on the page is the link in the bio with all the other links in it. You can find a YouTube channel there and everything else. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, apologies. You know, like I said, you kindly invited me on, and hopefully people enjoyed it. But if they didn't, I'm sorry, and your normal service will resume, I expect, after the weekend or after the second leg. So you won't have to put up with me for much longer.
No, JJ, don't give yourself such a disservice, honestly. It's been a pleasure having you on, as it always is. And thank you to everyone that has joined us in the chat room. I know it's obviously been a bit of a difficult podcast, but we're going to do it. So keep the faith. Big win on the weekend and an even bigger win at the Park of Princes next week. This has been the Same Old Arsenal podcast from myself and JJ. We'll see you very soon. Come on, you Arsenal.